peacemakers. Eternal Father, may we be as faithful in our remembrance of POWs as we will become faithful and determined peacemakers. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. I would now like to call on Moira Turley, the Director of the New Zealand Commerce and Industry Office in Taipei, and our co-host for this year's event, to share a few remarks. Moira.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Minister of Veterans Affairs, Michael Hurst, other representatives of foreign officers and also veterans who are gathered here today. Dajia Hao. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being so patient with us as we asked you to wear face masks and distance and have your temperatures taken. I think we all recognise that with our veterans here today, we need to look after them and their precious lives, so thank you all for doing that. Welcome for all of you who have come here today to remember those who were imprisoned here at Kinkaseki and in other camps around Taiwan. It is 75 years since World War II ended, and with it the camps. But for those who were prisoners here, the experience marked their lives forever. World War II saw much suffering. It is important that we come together to remember that and to respect the endurance and the bravery of those who were directly impacted. But that suffering and that resilience is for nothing if we do not learn from it so that it may not be repeated. Looking back forces us to confront the horrors that people have inflicted upon each other. It requires us to reflect on how easily, in the context of conflict, we fall into brutality. In New Zealand, we have confronted our own history in openly addressing how we treated those we incarcerated during the war. Others, friends and foe, have done the same. In the aftermath of World War II, many nations came together. After two catastrophic global conflicts, the pressing need for better world cooperation was evident. While the League of Nations had been created for that purpose after World War I, it had proved ineffective. There was a strong drive to ensure the horrors of that recent conflict would not be repeated. After World War I, a conference had been held that had adopted conventions relating to treatment of the sick and wounded in the battlefield and of prisoners. But at the end of World War II, the atrocities committed drew the world's attention to the need for collective action to address again the issue of treatments like combatants and civilians in conflict and wider human rights breaches. These issues go beyond individual countries, communities and cultures. They need a common global understanding, a common global approach, and often common global rules. At a conference in San Francisco in October 1945, 50 nations hammered out a new charter for world relations. After fierce debate, the United Nations was born. New Zealand was one of a small number of countries that successfully lobbied for human rights to be included. That led to the first comprehensive international agreement on human rights, the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, which was adopted in 1948. In 1949, agreement was reached on the Geneva Conventions, which reaffirmed, expanded and updated the prior Geneva and Hague Conventions, including treatment of prisoners of war. Since that immediate post-war period, there have been many further actions taken to promote the preservation of human rights and lock-in protections for both civilians and military personnel caught up in conflict. While we cannot say that abuses and atrocities have ended, we can say that many continue to work tirelessly to ensure that the experiences of those that suffered in earlier conflicts were not in vain. We see that in those brave soldiers who, through their very presence, help maintain the peace agreements in places like the Sinai, and those who work alongside and in communities torn apart by conflict and violence to create space for them to rebuild in places like Timor-Leste and the Solomon Islands. We also see it in the work of governments, which hold themselves to higher standards, train their militaries in the laws of war, and seek to be transparent and open to answering questions when they are asked of them. We can see it in the efforts of NGOs, whose brave support staff help civilians caught up in war zones and monitor the activities of state and non-state participants in conflicts alike. We see it in the actions of media who shine a light on abuses, and ordinary people who stand up for what is right, even in the most difficult circumstances. Averting conflict and ensuring that even when conflict occurs, those caught up in it are treated with respect and with dignity requires ongoing effort. And in gathering here today to participate in this act of remembrance, each and every one of you is taking action. Doing so is the greatest mark of respect that we can offer to those who suffered here so many years ago. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Share, share.
Thank you. For many years, the ROC Veterans Affairs Council has supported our work and our efforts to make sure the former Taiwan POWs are honored and remembered. They have also contributed to our Remembrance Day services, and we are very grateful for their help. We are honored to have with us this morning the Minister, General Phong Shi-kan, present with us, and I would now like to ask him to address the gathering. General.
Director, host, distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I feel great honor to attend this meaningful Remembrance Day event on behalf of the Veteran Affairs Council of ROC, the veterans. I would like to thank the Director Hurst invited me to the memorial event today. I also appreciate the New Zealand Commerce and Industry Office in Taipei for your assistance to these important activities. Whenever we pause to reflect on the suffering of prisoners of war who were forced to doing my job in a terrible working environment and treated inhumanly, we feel great pain in our heart. I would like to tell you a story recently I heard from my friend. He's the third generation native in Jingguasi. His grandma and grandparents organized with some residents. That time, the food is seriously leaked. People will not be able to eat themselves, still feel hungry. But let's save some food at night. They use medicines to carry out to the POWs. And they saw the POWs, they're eating the food. They use hands to grab. Looks so stuffy. They are giving them food and crying all the time. You can imagine about that. The POWs, their living environment is so bad. I tell you this story, I want to say these POWs here were tortured by the Japanese, but the Taiwanese people are kind and loved people. They are the best people, I would say, in the world. And this year is the 75th anniversary of the end of the World War II and the VJ Day. The savage and unbearable history of the wartime has gradually faded away as time goes by. However, we should not forget the suffering of the POWs. We pay tribute to those who have given their lives for their countries by holding memorial event year by year, because it means a lot for the peace, is for a lot to the world and freedom, and tell us, educated us, the peace will never has been free and never cheap. And we should build this, I would say, very painful heart to remember. We would like to pray. Wishes may world have no war anymore, and people love each other and love peace in the future. Finally, I wish you all have good health in many comes years. Thank you.
It's good to have Vice Admiral 蒋海安, the Vice President of the Veterans Association of the Republic of China, with us on this special occasion. The association has also supported our efforts to remember the former Allied prisoners of war, as well as the ROC veterans who have served their country so well. He will now share some thoughts with us. Admiral.
Good morning. Dear Mr. Michael Hurst, the Director of the Taiwan POW Memorial Camp Society, the Director Ms. Turley of New Zealand Commerce and Industry of the in Taipei, representatives of the other Allied Trade Office in Taipei, the Veterans Affairs Council of the Republic of China, Minister Fong, families of the World War II POWs, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. 后面咱的台湾朋友，大家搞早，大家好啊！ I am the Deputy President of the Veterans Association of the Republic of China, retired Vice Admiral Jiang Haian. It is my great honor to speak at this solemn memorial service today at the金瓜石 POW Memorial Park. Those POWs whose names inscribed on the memorial wall here should never be forgotten. Thanks to the Taiwan World War II Allied POW Memorial Society for its all-out efforts to organize this memorial service by pulling together the contributions of the representative offices of the Allied countries in Taipei and the cooperation of the New Taipei City government and the ROC BSC. My organization is a non-government veterans service entity. We are established to join the World Veterans Services, and we follow the motto, wherever veterans are, our service follow. We cooperate with the government to extend the service to those who have served the country. The POWs answer the call of the government to defend their country, and guard their people. Their services should be forever remembered and repaid by the country and the protected. We vow to continue to do that. Thank you, and thanks again for being invited to participate in this commemoration. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral. I would now like to ask Michael Hurst, Director of the Taiwan POW Camps Memorial Society, to speak about remembering.
Thank you, Mark.